How's it going, everybody? My name is Jesse and welcome back to Male Nurse Mentor. Today I'm going to be talking about how to switch your nursing job correctly and with the most success. This is a video topic that I find to be quite important. Maybe not now, but at some point in this journey of your nursing career, you're going to want to switch jobs, or you're going to find yourself in a position where you need to switch your job. It's inevitable. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about the steps that you should be taking, right, even before you have to go and switch your job. Because there are things you could be doing today that will help you out in the future when that inevitable moment does arrive. So why do I feel like I can speak on this, right? I've only been a nurse for 6 years. That's not that long. It's long enough though to have actually lived a little bit in this nursing career. And if you don't know my story yet, for me, just to summarize, I worked for 3 different departments, 2 different employers. I did try a nurse supervisor position for a short period of time, and I've done various nurse specialty positions. I've gone from working on the floor to now actually working in a more promotional role, working away from the floor, from home for the state government. So I feel like I've kind of been around in my short 6 years as a nurse. All this to say, friends, that experience that I'm trying to paint to you, it all culminated into what it is that I have today. And it's going to be the same thing for you. You know, you start somewhere as a baby nurse, new grad nurse, however you want to refer to yourself as, and you kind of go on this journey. But like I said at the beginning, you're going to find yourself either wanting to switch or having to switch your nursing job. So in today's video, let's talk about this. So I figured the best way for me to go about creating a video like this is I'm going to be answering common misconceptions and giving you my advice using my own experience. So that'll be the approach for today's video. So for this first question, friends, do new nurses need to stay for at least a year at their first job? So I wrote here, no, and in fact, I'd suggest applying or keeping an eye out for your next job. So I'm going to speak about my experience here a little bit. Some of you may already know. But my very first job, friends, it was working at a county jail. I was there for 6 months and then I left. I left to go work at the state prison. And at the time, I was just getting comfortable. I just felt competent, like I was getting competent in my role. Everything was kind of coming together, right, around the 6-month mark. And then I got a notice in the mail from another opportunity, right, to work at the state prison, which is kind of what I've always wanted. And I wasn't sure if I should take this opportunity, right? You're gonna find yourself probably in a similar position early on in your career. You're also gonna feel guilty. You're gonna feel guilty for leaving your current first employer. So for me, I was kind of torn, right? Should I just stay here a little bit longer? Maybe the next opportunity is gonna come along later again? Or should I just jump? Like, this one's okay, but that one's better. That's the one that I want. Like, that one is for my future goals, right? Thinking long term into the future of my career. What I ended up doing was I jumped ship from the county jail job to the state prison nurse role. Looking in hindsight, it paid off. So what I recommend to you guys, even though you get this first job, let's say it's not your dream job, continue to look. You never know what's going to come along in that first year of you being a nurse. If it's one that you love, stay there. I mean, you already enjoy it, right? But keep all of this in mind. That was my experience. So for this next question, friends, I wrote, how would I approach getting my next nurse job? So you already got your first job. This is how to get your next job. Or you have your current job, how to get your next one, right? After this one today. So first, I put get clarity on where you want to be or what you like. Example, you want to work off the floor as a nurse, or you want to work on the floor as a nurse. Which one's the one that's pulling you more? Do you want to work more in admin, case management, and desk nurse jobs, or do you want to stay on the floor, maybe work as an NP one day, a specialized ICU nurse, cardiac nurse, right? You really like clinical stuff. You want to stay on the floor, right? Maybe go back to school for CRNA, right? 2 very different things. Get clarity on this. What I often see is nurses don't take the time to get the clarity on the vision that they want for their career. What I mean by this is you don't know if you want to stay on the floor. You don't know if you want to get off the floor. You can have a desire for both, right? So here you are kind of navigating your career, like wanting to get off the floor, but then you take another floor position. You don't really get the desk nurse experience that you need to then get off the floor. You also maybe one day want to get into management, but you're like not really taking the plunge, right, to make an effort to maybe become a charge nurse or a nurse supervisor, right? Like you're just kind of in limbo, just waiting for things to kind of come to you. So you're not really like building out your career with intention. I'll tell you what happens if you build out your career with intention. If you build out your career with intention, an example is like mine. within 6 years, a short amount of time, you can go from a new grad floor nurse to a promotional role, right? Maybe one like mine where you work from home. You just have to go throughout your career with intention, getting experience that is required to get the role that you eventually want one day. So that's a pretty standard example, right? But it's one that I had to navigate at some point. I started to realize I actually want to get off the floor. So I'm not going to focus my energy on getting more clinical experience. I'm going to focus my energy on getting desk nurse experience, which a lot of those nurse specialty roles that I did helped me get. Case management, an appeals nurse, a specialty clinic line, like working with telemed patients. I also tried a little bit of a nurse supervisor position so I can then understand the bigger picture of the system here. So those are all things that help. An opposite example of that is if I'm trying to stay on the floor, I'm going to go find experience that is the most valuable for being on the floor, right? Maybe going onto a very clinical floor, maybe ICU, maybe ER, promoting within those floors, maybe to charge nurse, some supervisor role. That's what I would do, right? And focus my energy on if I'm trying to stay on the floor and really get a lot of experience on the floor. So the second part of this, right, after you get clarity, focus on doing research on how extra schooling may help you. So you've got some clarity, you know you want to stay on the floor, you know you want to get off the floor. Find the capacity in your current life to go back to school, either for your BSN or your MSN, because trust me, it will help. And if you have your BSN, go for your MSN. If you don't have your BSN, go for your BSN. It will help you, regardless of which way you go. So keep that part in mind. Another piece to this is that you also want to network. You want to network and reach out to those that work where you want to be one day. Example, for me, I knew I wanted to get off the floor, right? So case management position kind of fell in my lap. I hopped on that opportunity, but I've been networking with the case manager. They knew me pretty well, and I think that's why they offered me that position. So do something like that, right? If you want to go and become a case manager. This is networking. Watch, look at, find out who that person is, get their email, send them an email introducing yourself, asking them if you could shadow them one day, or how they got to that position. That way they can give you some of the steps that they took, so that way you can maybe follow in those steps and get there one day as well. And that's networking. It could be that simple. When I thought of networking, you know, early on in my career, I always found it to be this very intimidating thing. It could be really simple as an email, right? And then follow up on that email, and then follow up on that email again, and doing little things like that. The example, apart from the case management one that I have, is when I found out nurses can work from home. I found the email of that person that works from home and asked them, how did you do it? What did you have to do to get there? And then they told me, and then I followed up with them, and that was a good contact, right, for me to have. So for this next question, what's something about switching jobs that you didn't know until after you did switch? One thing that I really think is important here, and I wrote here, is there are swings in the nursing job market, and therefore the best time to look and prepare for the job is when you're not desperate. Once you're desperate, it is too late. Prepare for a job years in anticipation. I want you guys to know it took me 2.5 years to land a work from home position, and that's because 2.5 years before I was even able to make the move, I found out I didn't have the requirements to make the move, at least within the state, right? If I wanted to work from home in the state, the best option, the best route for me was to go get my master's degree. Well, I didn't have it. I was watching job postings post certain positions where nurses can work from home, and I was applying, and obviously I wasn't getting any callbacks because I wasn't even meeting the minimum requirements. The minimum requirement to work from home for many of these state jobs that I wanted was a master's degree. I had kind of a little bit of everything else, but I didn't check that box of having a master's degree. So it took me 2.5 years, right? In those 2.5 years, getting my master's degree, kind of building my resume up to be an eligible and strong candidate, I also found myself getting more additional specialty nurse role experience, right? Especially in desk nurse roles. During that time is when I also tried a nurse supervisor position, and I also did case management coverage. So I was a cover for the case management nurse at my facility for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, right? By the time I was kind of picked up for that work from home job. So keep this in mind. Start building yourself up before you actually get desperate to job. I hope that makes sense. And those were pretty much the 2 examples that I have. So jobs that surprisingly ask for a master's degree and you don't have it, one example, right? You go to apply for this job that you really want, and bam, you don't meet the minimum requirements. You don't have a master's degree. So therefore, you don't get that position. So you have to prepare in advance. To go back to school is not an easy thing. So if you're missing a degree, you're probably a few years out. I mean, just to be blunt, like I was. The second example is wanting a work from home job when the entire country wants one and you don't have any prior desk nurse experience that is going to get you or help you get that job. So you go to apply for these work from home positions and you have no desk nurse experience, right? And you're trying to be a strong candidate for these positions. Well, you kind of have to find yourself in a role to get experience, right? In these desk nurse roles. Do that for a year, do that for 2 years, for as long as it takes until you get picked up for one of these work from home nurse positions. So these are just two examples of you're going to want it, but you're not going to be ready for it. You're not going to be a strong candidate for it. So it's going to take preparation to actually land one of these jobs. So do keep this in mind. I did experience this myself as I was navigating my journey. I just want you guys to know ahead of time, so that way even when you're not desperate, you're not looking for a work from home job, maybe you're not looking to switch jobs, you're just preparing in the meantime, right? Everything counts. And that brings me to my next point. So last piece of advice for switching nurse jobs. Really look at your career like a journey. Lean into any new opportunities, especially when asked, even if you don't see the true benefit at the time. When asked is the best time, as it will often be seen as a favor and thus lead to less pressure if it doesn't work out. I've been asked multiple times to try a new role. Most of the times it worked out, but I think once or twice it didn't, and there's less pressure because they kind of asked me for a favor to try it, right? And I realized I didn't really like it, right? So kind of backed out. You really never know how one coverage or a position can help you one day land your next job. I'm going to end it with that strong piece of advice, friends. The biggest thing that's helped me in my career is truly treating it like a journey. At any given time, if an opportunity comes across, it is offered to me, I took it. I took the most out of it. And whenever I went to go, write my resume, I wrote down that position and how long I did it for and everything I was doing. And over time, it really adds up. So how did I get here as quick as I got here in 6 years, right? To work in this position that I'm in as a nurse consultant for the state government. It is the culmination of all the experience that I've gained over a short amount of time. But it's a lot of experience that people throughout their nursing career won't get in a long period of time. And the one thing that you'll commonly feel here, friends, is discomfort. It was uncomfortable to go be an appeals nurse when I was new there at the facility, kind of early on. It was uncomfortable to operate a specialty telemed line, right? It was uncomfortable to hop into case management, after being 2 years at the facility and having imposter syndrome. But then I would actually be a case manager and cover, and I'd realize other case managers, even though they've been there for years, would also struggle too. The discomfort is the common theme. I felt uncomfortable as a nurse supervisor. I felt uncomfortable jumping into this role that I have today and working from home. So if anything, friends, the discomfort is a very clear indicator that you're going the right way in your career. It is likely going to lead you to an outcome that you're going to be very happy with. But if you continue to be comfortable, it's going to be the opposite effect. You're going to watch these opportunities just kind of, go by, and you're not going to jump on them. And then one day, you're just going to want to switch jobs, and you're not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to. Because one, you're not going to be ready. Maybe you're not going to have the requirements. And just to be blunt, there's going to be people that are probably better than you for that position. Take everything that I said in this video and try to apply it the best way that you can. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me. I'm around, friends, and you know where to find me. See you guys on the next video.